This is Backstage Bay Area, your all-access pass to the local music scene.
Today on Backstage Bay Area, I'm joined by ELEW, the Camden-born piano virtuoso who won the Thelonious Monk International Jazz Piano Competition, studied at the Manhattan School of Music on a Rodgers and Hammerstein scholarship, and later reinvented himself with a high-octane crossover he calls Rockjazz. He's worked with Wynton Marsalis, Elvin Jones, Cassandra Wilson, and many more. Most recently, he opened the North American leg of Sting's My Songs 3.0 tour and is recording an album, ELEW Plays Sting. He brings that music to SFJAZZ soon, and we're digging into all of it on today's show. ELEW, welcome to Backstage Bay Area.
Hi.
It's great to have you here.
So great to be here. Looking forward to our chat.
All right. Hey, let's start off with your music origins. You started playing at age 2 and later earned the Rodgers and Hammerstein Scholarship to the Manhattan School of Music. What were the sounds around your home in Camden, and which mentors or moments at MSM most shaped your touch and time feel?
Fantastic. I am the fourth generation of classical musicians in my family. I grew up in basically a neighborhood music school that was run by my great-grandmother. Also, there were 5 pianos in my home. So there were 4 pianos, or let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So there was 4 pianos on the first floor and 1 in the basement.
Wow.
And so I grew up literally hearing Chopin's A major Polonaise beneath my bedroom being played by my great-grandmother's star classical pianist. I did not know that all the other kids in the neighborhood did not practice piano until I was about in 4th grade. So
Wow.
It was sort of a Truman Show experience for me. For me, practicing piano was just another chore, just like cutting the grass, washing the dishes, sweeping the floor. So I grew up in a situation like that, very similar to a circus family where everyone's doing contortions and flips. And so it's just a bit normal for me. My mother has a doctorate in classical flute and theory.
Wow.
My great-grandmother played classical piano. My grandfather played classical organ. My great-grandfather had an orchestra. He played flute and classical clarinet. My father played electric bass. And my aunts played classical violin and piano. So I was very much immersed in classical music. I'm the first jazz person, and that came about because my mother, when she was working on her doctorate, she decided that she wanted to play a piece called, for her jury, she wanted to play a piece called Angels and Devils. And it's a special composition. The angelic part of the composition required my mother to get classical musicians, and the devil's part of the composition required my mother to get some jazz musicians. And so recently, and very dearly departed drummer named David Gibson came over my home, and he heard me practicing Beethoven's Waldstein Sonata. And he said to my mother, "You got to get that boy to learn how to play some jazz." And so that led to him introducing us to local jazz legend in Philadelphia, Gerald Price, who was a pianist accompanist for Dakota Staton. And that began my jazz journey. Now, moving all the way up to your second part of that question with regards to Manhattan School of Music, I had the wonderful honor to be placed with the legendary and also dearly departed Jackie Byard, who was the pianist for Charlie Mingus, most notably, among other things. And so Jackie Byard taught me about getting the bebop touch and the syllabic ooba, ooba, ooba type of sound that bebop sort of elicits psychosomatically in the technique. And he also got me into a particular type of classic stride feel, a very sweet type of rhythmic stride type of feel, and got me thinking about alternative variants of stride and ways to produce a stride Afrocentricity Harlem style to the piano that was not just confined to oompa, 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 oompa with the left hand, but could be comprised of multiple rhythms and different ideas. I guess that's a good place to pause. I mean, I could spiral out too many directions.
I was going to ask you about winning the Thelonious Monk competition, which is a career earthquake for most artists. What changed for you musically and professionally in the months after that win?
I first was accepted to compete in that competition when I was 16 years old, and I made it to the semifinals. And then the next time I went out for it, I was, I think, 20 years old, and I didn't get in. And then I won it when I was 26 years old. And by the time I was 26, I had already been doing some touring with Wynton. I had left Wynton for a period because I was just going through some emotional stuff. And so the culmination of me working through my emotional stuff was me winning the Monk competition, which was very cool because previously Marcus Roberts had won that. So it was just all part of a Marsalis lineage kind of thing. So that kind of felt nice.
Nice.
However, after winning the Monk competition, much to my dismay, I wasn't considered record label material. However, I did get a chance to actually record one song with Clark Terry on this album that featured a bunch of pianists, including Benny Green and others. I recorded Liza with him. And then Elvin Jones gave me a call. It turns out that he had a previous Monk competition winner for trumpet, Darren Barrett, in the current band. And so that was the call that I had wanted to get all my life.
Can imagine.
Because my style was so rooted in McCoy Tyner, among others. And I knew all of those Elvin records and all the Coltrane records and the Wayne Shorter records. Every record that Elvin had appeared on, I knew. And I knew exactly how to feed Elvin and how to comp and provide the types of moorings that helped him, allowed him, supported his springboarding and complemented it. So I was through the roof when I got that call. And for the next 2 years, it was just like father and son. It was just father and son, he and I, very close.
How wonderful.
It was absolute nectar. I'll share something special with you.
Okay.
The most special moment. I don't know if I should say the most special, but I swear it was, man, incredibly, incredibly special. Elvin Jones and I were backstage by ourselves in Vienne, France. There's a festival out there, and all the other musicians were somewhere else at that moment. And it was just Elvin and I backstage in the green room. And he and I were doing what we always would do, is talk about the music, and I would ask him questions and he'd give me these amazing answers. And then suddenly in walks McCoy Tyner and Freddie Hubbard.
Whoa.
Now, Elvin walked over to them and I was so happy. I tried to disappear in that couch. I was so happy because these three guys proceeded to jive talk each other. Not so much McCoy. McCoy would just laugh because he's more reserved. But the type of banter that happened between Elvin and Freddie was just awesome. And I have a pretty decent Elvin Jones impression. People say, Freddie, it sounds like I've heard you had a lip problem, Freddie. Sounds like a discipline problem to me. I mean,
that's pretty good.
The nuance, the insouciance. Oh man, I was suddenly able to say to myself, oh yeah, this is exactly why I got into jazz. Now I'm reminded everything has been made worth it
Well,
just to be there.
well, let's transition into your rock jazz phase. You eventually reemerged as ELEW, blending concert piano technique with the energy of rock and prepared piano ideas. What problem were you trying to solve artistically when rock jazz was born, and what did it unlock in your playing?
At a certain point, after I left Elvin after 2 years, I went back with Wynton to do a full year with him and the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra. Basically, what happened was that I had a major falling out with the jazz community industry at large because I felt as though I was being highly undervalued relative to what I could give and relative to what I had earned. I felt extremely upset that I had been passed over to receive a record deal, things of that nature. So there's the business side of it that was hitting me emotionally. So that's one. Number two, artistically, musically, I felt a bit constrained because once I decided that I was going to leave Wynton and jazz for good, per se, I started to notice that the energy that I was able to convey to the audience was a bit esoteric, because if I wasn't playing an original, I was playing something a la John Coltrane or in that aesthetic. I just felt there was another way to connect with people. I wasn't quite getting to it. And so then I did this masterclass for some kids in Cincinnati. And after the masterclass, I had lunch with all these kids. And I was telling them what I'm telling you about this feeling. And this one kid said, "You should check out Linkin Park." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "It's a rock band." And I said, "Well, I'm trying to." He said, "Yeah, man, check out Linkin Park." Now, this was at the time when Tower Records was still in business.
Yeah.
And so I came back to New York and I went into Tower Records and I found Linkin Park and I found an album called Meteora. And so I said, okay, I had never bought a rock record in my life. And so I said, okay. So I sat down and I listened to this track. I listened to this album come on, and it started to blow my wig back, basically. And I started hearing the parallels between what the drummer was evoking and my time with Elvin. And I was hearing what Chester Bennington, the screaming singer, and the guitars were evoking. And I was able to compare it to Coltrane on Transition. Now, obviously, these are very different genres and styles and skill levels. However, I was able to hear it in the sense that this was their way of expressing the fire that Coltrane and Elvin had expressed in their way.
Wow.
So that was a very important thing. Now, someone listening to this could be cringing right now and saying, he just compared these lowly rock kids to the greatest geniuses in jazz. And that's the exact problem with that kind of thinking, because it cuts you off in a very immature way. Yeah, I'm very aware of how brilliant and genius John Coltrane and Elvin Jones in that unit was and remains. It's immortal.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the point. I'm talking about something a bit more human, just in terms of the human gesture to make music and the human gesture to prehistorically express oneself at the aesthetic level. And that's where I saw the similarity, and I saw a similar communing point. And there was a tune on Meteora called Somewhere I Belong. I want to find somewhere I belong. And that lyric and the lyrics of the rock were very different from any lyrics that I was getting in jazz. This is another huge point. Lyrics. See, in jazz, you would get lyrics like, picture you upon my knee, it's me for you and you for me, just T for two and two for T alone, stuff like that. But as far as lyrics that express psychological angst, pain, that kind of a thing, Linkin Park has a tune called Crawling. Crawling in my skin, these wounds, they will not heal. Fear is how I fall, confusing what is real. Now, those lyrics were powerful to me because I had been suffering panic attacks and depressions previously. So to discover lyrics and a type of music that was based around that kind of angst and expressing it, utilizing tools that had their own reminiscence to Elvin and Train,
Wow.
caused me to see a possibility. What if I could create a piano style based upon the techniques that I honed in jam sessions and then up with Elvin Jones? But I was able to thread all that through the rock guitar driven ethos of rock for that particular audience. So that's how I solved the problem of the lack of the record deal and the lack of the agencies and all that stuff on the business side, but at the same time was able to continue to challenge myself and work on my technique, because previous to that, I had heard the Bad Plus. I had heard Brad Meldau's versions of rock tunes.
Sure.
But I had a different notion as to how to approach the fire of rock. My approach was driven by my own personal internal agonies and panic attacks and things of that nature. And so that's why, because of my internal antagonists and the fact that I didn't have Sony record deals like those guys did, even though I had won a competition, the biggest competition in jazz, all the betrayal I felt, all that stuff led to my fiery and blunt and humongous type of treatment of rock. And that's why my style was bigger and louder and a bit crazier and a bit perhaps, more compelling at the solo piano level in terms of the amount of technique it took to just do what I did while standing, while wearing armor. That's what led to me getting large sums of money to perform on the yachts of Russian oligarchs, or perform at Oscar parties, or perform at fashion weeks, or perform at TED Talks, or perform at tech conventions or health conventions, etc. Play for Tiffany or Louis Vuitton, these kinds of things. Because I started to become an art installation, a performance art sort of mechanism, and still am to this day. As we speak, I'm in a hotel room here in Reno, Nevada, resting from a cross-country journey I take every year on my way to Burning Man, where I'll be, performing, playing a guitar, playing piano, DJing at raves in the middle of the night in the middle of the desert with Bedouins.
Nice.
So rock and rock jazz, the term itself was evolved out of a lot of study of brands and a lot of study of the evolutions of jazz and different terms that have come up in jazz. And a lot of times people think of jazz as something that is soft and rock as something that is hard. So I wanted to, there was a genre that, like Tony Williams' Lifetime band or Weather Report, they would call it jazz rock. Mostly jazz, some rock, basically. I called mine rock jazz because it's mostly rock and some jazz. So that slight inversion. There's some other connotations that are baked in there, but I don't want to necessarily say them right now in polite company.
Thanks for sharing that great story. I want to go listen to some Linkin Park after we're done with this interview. I'm fascinated now.
Sure.
Good. Hey, you sent over a sample of a song, Message in a Bottle, which is a work in progress, you were telling me, for your upcoming ELEW Plays Sting album. Can you set this up before we play it?
Message in a Bottle is a fantastic tune. captures the psychology of someone trying to get their message out. And I think it's a wonderful metaphor for the plight of all of us as artists. We're trying to get our message out of ourselves. And certainly, I've been trying to get this record done, for crying out loud. It's been much more difficult than I expected to get it to sound the way that I want to. I plan to have it ready, or at least a few tracks ready for by the time I, play San Francisco Jazz coming right up. But as it stands, this track here is the current master version of Message in a Bottle. And Sting's a wonderful bass player. And so, of course, me with my fantastic left hand, I want to utilize my left hand and utilize my ability to play contrapuntal melodies and themes and independence and stuff like that.
All right. Well, let's give a listen to it now. This is ELEW from his upcoming Sting tribute album, and we're listening to Message in a Bottle on Backstage Bay Area. That was Message in a Bottle by ELEW, a preview track from his upcoming album. ELEW is my guest today on Backstage Bay Area. So let's talk about this upcoming album, ELEW Plays Sting. What's the thesis? Is it a solo piano portrait? Are there guests? How did you choose the tunes to represent the sweep of his career?
My most recent album was I don't know if you say retrospective, certainly a perspective on the music of Kurt Rosenwinkel, the fabulous, brilliant guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
And so that album is called Cubism, ELEW Plays Rosenwinkel. And my rock jazz albums have all been solo as well, where I look at each tune as a portrait of that particular artist. So I'm continuing in that piano portraiture direction with Sting. So far, there has been one collaboration on this record that sounds pretty awesome. I've got Emmanuel Wilkins on a track. He's the fabulous alto player. He's playing on a track with me, Walking on the Moon, one of Sting's great hits. And other than that, it's all solo, but I am playing with the idea of maybe getting Wyclef on a tune, Wyclef Jean. I don't know. I don't know. Right now, though, it looks like the whole album's going to be solo except for this one track that I've got with Emmanuel Wilkins, Walking on the Moon. And it's amazing. As far as the track selection, I am just barreling right in there. I'm playing the biggest hits that Sting has made, as well as a few obscure ones. I'm playing, for instance, on the obscure side, I'm playing a tune that Branford, Sting, and Kenny Kirkland just threw together. It's called Dream of the Blue Turtles. And so that's a real Ornette Coleman sounding kind of thing. And so that one's going to be one that's going to be just kind of all over the place.
Great. Do you have a release date in mind for the new album?
Sometime in September.
Okay.
Coming soon. Coming soon. I've been working on this over and over and over.
Wow.
I worked myself into bad health one time on this thing, but it's a labor of love, and Sting's work deserves it, and it's so fun, and I want the audience to experience that fun. But it's coming along nicely. But
nice.
Look forward, in the month of September.
That's just right around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about your upcoming shows at SFJAZZ. You're bringing a solo show to the Joe Henderson Lab for 2 nights, 2 shows a night. What can audiences look forward to in terms of set flow, improvisation, and how much of the set list might change from show to show?
It's going to be a wonderful pair of nights. High energy, high virtuosity, and plenty of just rock energy and plenty of jazz. I mean, I'm just going to release the Kraken. The tune selection, I will probably have a entry point with tunes like Message in a Bottle, and then we'll see where the night takes us. Because what's so wonderful about Sting's repertoire is that there's so many moods. I could end on many different notes. So I'm just more focused on threading the needle. But I mean, I've got some great arrangements that are just going to be super aesthetically entrancing and compelling and energizing and interesting. And also, I'm going to be able to showcase the piano and all of the different mechanisms. One of the things that I do, playing inside the piano and muting the strings and all the different special effects I can get out of the piano. So it's going to be, the one thing that I've discovered with all of this is that it's as if ever since I left Wynton Marsalis so many years ago, all these roads were leading to Sting, and I just didn't know it. Because rock jazz is literally what Sting is. Sting is the epitome of rock jazz. Right. And that's the thing that I noticed touring with him. That's the epiphany that I've come to, having finished the tour and, being in the studio and doing all this research on him, is the realization that his music is such an incredibly perfect vehicle for my rock jazz ideas.
Right.
I mean, there's a tune he's got called Murder by Numbers. McBride's actually recording it with Sting for his new album, it's a doom tap do do doom tap do doom tap do do doom tap. I mean, just these kinds of grooves like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the reggae kind of stuff like that. He's got the punk rock stuff going on. He's got stuff that I'm going to make into epic rock.
Wow.
He's got free jazz in there, like I was saying earlier. I mean, these concerts are going to run the gamut of everything that we love to hear in rock and jazz.
Nice. Well, let me remind our listeners, ELEW's solo program called Rock Meets Jazz, ELEW Plays Sting, comes to the Joe Henderson Lab at SFJAZZ for 4 shows. Saturday, September 13th, there's a 7 o'clock show and an 8:30 p.m. show. On Sunday, September 14th, there's a 6 p.m. show and a 7:30 p.m. show. It sounds like you could go to all 4 shows and get 4 different concerts.
pretty much.
Yeah. For tickets, visit sfjazz.org and search ELEW Plays Sting, or go directly to the ELEW event page from the site's calendar. ELEW, thanks so much for spending your time with us today. I really enjoyed some of those stories there, and I got to go out and listen to Linkin Park now, thanks to you. And enjoy your time at SFJAZZ as well.
Thank you. I'll see you soon. I appreciate you, and much love to you and all your listeners.
Absolutely. I'm Stephen Roby, and this is Backstage Bay Area. Stay with us. More music ahead.
Hey musicians, would you like to be a guest on Backstage Bay Area? Just email the host and let him know when you'll be playing in the Bay Area. The address is backstage.sfbay@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning into the Backstage Bay Area podcast. Don't forget to visit us online at backstagebayarea.com for more insights and stories. Be sure to join us next time for more engaging conversations with local talent and touring musicians. Until then, keep the music alive, and we'll see you backstage.